post, but I will press the record. Okay,
It says recording, great.
Cool, yeah. Thank you. And the sound is okay. You might hear compressors coming on in the background, but cool. All right. I am sharing screen and there's the pitch. All right. Yeah, so thank you everybody for being here. And so just a little background on regenerative agriculture. I know we're anywhere on the spectrum of knowing a little bit to a whole lot about regenerative agriculture here. And likewise with Cardano, maybe knowing a little bit to a whole lot. So we'll just start us off just with some of the ways that I think about regenerative agriculture. So first of all, there's a lot of related terms. I know it's always a bit of a challenge to find the right word. There's no perfect word. Regenerative is like a hot word right now. It's not necessarily, all encompassing, but I like it. There's permaculture. You can see a bunch of the other terms that are used. So ending with two more specific systems or approaches to systems, which would be like silvopasture, which you can see on the top right there. One example of the many ways that silvopasture would look, where it's basically.
Sorry, Tyler.
Yes.
I don't think you're sharing. Yeah. I don't think you're sharing at the moment.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know. Here we go.
We're just commenting.
The button's green, but I'm not actually. I didn't actually do it. How's that?
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
Minimize all our faces here. You got to see the cows. Yeah. So the top right picture there is that's just an example I pulled off of Wikipedia of a silvopasture system, which the idea there is you have ruminants, which includes cows and bison and goats and sheep and deer also technically and some others. But their guts are in relationship with the pasture that they feed from, and by introducing perennials into the system, it's sort of like a savanna-like ecosystem. Picture like the savanna in Africa, for instance. You have ruminant animals eating a bunch of grass and foraging some other things. They poop, they pee in one area, they pack tightly in herds, the way they would in the wild when they're under threat from predators, wolves, lions, whatever it might be. So all of those dynamics at play are basically how the prairie type of ecosystems have evolved to build the deepest topsoil on Earth. And so animals are really critical to regenerative agriculture and transforming the land, making the transition from industrial agriculture into regenerative. They're powerhouses for sequestering carbon and starting that cycle. In general, we definitely eat too much meat, and we also eat the wrong kind of meat. But we really need these animals, and some of them need to be harvested in order to make the whole system work and for us to derive enough sustenance. Anyway, so food is just one thing. There's timber, fiber for clothing, medicine, what we would call like ecosystem services from our point of view. There's also just a lot of other beneficial byproducts we get from engaging in regenerative agriculture, and it can happen all over and any kind of ecosystem you can imagine, or human landscape, or waterscape. There is potential for regeneration. Scott talked about a lot of this stuff, but the idea of preserving ecosystems like old growth forests, we've got to stop cutting them down. That's really key. But then there's also great opportunities taking depleted soils, dead soils, soils that are diminishing, and getting regenerative practices onto those. So the transition from extractive to regenerative is a really important thing. We can look at it from economically, from the supply side, from the demand side. And we're all here to think about the ways that we can play a role using Cardano to make that happen. And then I just like to, I like to think about characters. So there's literally millions of characters. There's tens of thousands in a spoonful of soil that we could talk about. I couldn't, but maybe somebody could. But I like to think about some animals and other organisms that we all know that really play key roles. So that would be, perennials. Think of trees, ruminants, like we talked about. worms of all kinds, mollusks, kelp, salmon. Salmon are amazing, just their connection between the ocean and the mountains. They're channeling resources completely upstream. Nori, I don't think Nori is in here. He's probably leading his own group, but he has a lot to say about salmon. He's doing great work there. Mushrooms, I won't talk anymore about mushrooms. And then us, we have this idea that, we are only like net harmful on the planet. But, if we look at indigenous land stewardship, it's a lot of these ecosystems, like even in the Amazon, a large portion of the Amazon has the soil. I don't know if you've heard of terra preta or preta, sorry. And it was unexplained for a long time. And at least my understanding of it is that it pretty much figured out that it's sort of like this amazing soil that was started with something like biochar and who knows what else that, ancestors of ancestors started potentially thousands of years ago, that is still doing amazing ecosystem services. So if we jump in now to sort of the intersection between Cardano and regenerative, this is like where my head's been at a lot of times, like when I'm picking mushrooms, thinking about this kind of stuff. And it's kind of interesting. Like I don't understand everything about regenerative agriculture. I don't understand everything about Cardano, but I've just found myself kind of in this weird meeting point of those two things. And it's really like when I get in there, it's the things that come out of that, including connections that we're making here. It just like feels like where I need to be putting more of my time. And so there's so many different things that we can get into. I've just kind of listed a few. So one idea is that we are cultivating a culture here. We're cultivating a culture about how, this cryptocurrency community can address this issue wisely. There's a lot of like really challenging things, like, we need indigenous voices early on, not just for their wisdom, but to help us create the culture that we need around solving these types of problems. But we're talking about communities that have been like marginalized beyond comprehension, and, learning to distrust, systems of power and governments and things like that. So how do we bring those people in and give them a level of trust to start working with this technology? Whereas they're going to come, they're going to confront a lot of people that don't understand how the natural world works and are more like tech focused. But there's really, we all need each other at this point. And then there's like DeFi. I definitely don't know a whole lot about this stuff, but the different ways that we can finance farms and other things that are doing good work in this area. There's the idea of transparency of supply chains. Beef Chain is sort of doing that on using Cardano in Wyoming. So potential partners there. There's also the idea of transparency of finances, like really everybody, like an open bookkeeping type of thing, where everybody, customers, and everybody can kind of see where the finances are flowing, as opposed to, a centralized institution where they tend to keep those things private. There's decentralized identity, which I know when Charles Hoskinson talks about this, he sometimes says digital identity, and there's a big difference between decentralized identity and digital identity, even though they start with the same letters. So that's an important piece, and something that also like needs to be handled with a lot of care, because we are talking about people putting people's identities, or we're not talking about putting people's identities, we're talking about people voluntarily putting their identities up. But when you're talking about something like that interacts with governments, you have to be careful. Anyway, there's other things to list here: Internet of Things, oracles. There's like interesting things regarding like satellite data, being able to analyze sort of what's going on in ecosystems. There's a whole crazy world of NFTs that's a rabbit hole once you start thinking about it. Native tokens. And then one thing that I find myself thinking about a lot is like all these, the places that Cardano is really on the ground, kind of making an impact already. And Ethiopia is the best known. I could talk about, one really low-lying fruit, I feel like, in Ethiopia from a regenerative perspective is I was reading an article that was talking about how folks are burning manure for fuel, because they don't have access to other things. And, you know, it's probably true that even getting like fossil fuels to those people, now there may be better ways with solar cookers and things like that, but even getting like natural gas to folks up in the Ethiopian highlands, they don't have to burn manure, they can leave it on the pasture where it needs to be. That seems like something that would have a net net value as far as carbon goes. So that you can kind of see how these things are nuanced. It's not always like, it's not about demonizing a certain thing. It's about looking at the whole system and figuring out where we can interject to make the most positive change. There's Zanzibar recently kind of been looking into like their blue economy. They're also sitting on a whole lot of oil that we would probably all like them to leave in the ground, but it's a poor country. And the blue economy with fishing intersects with a lot of different things. Everything eventually flows into the ocean, so it's a good place to start when we're trying to connect these dots. There's WADA, West African Decentralized Alliance, who I believe are present. I'm not sure if you're in this room. Can't see faces right now, but I hope you're here. Please chime in if you are. Verytree that Scott was talking about. Charles talks about lobsters. There's Turtle Islands, pretty interesting, and bison. I've sort of gotten on a rabbit hole with bison recently on my blog, and it's sort of taking the shape of a future Cardano proposal, Catalyst proposal, but it's really just kind of throwing ideas out there right now, and would love to hear any feedback that you all have about it. And I will jump over to those resources. So I just wrote a few here. First, a great podcast is Investing in Regenerative Agriculture. Funny story, I reached out to Kuhn to let him know about this conference and our group and Catalyst. And it seems like Yoram had already reached out to Kuhn, and I saw his name on the list. And it was just one of these examples of like multiple connections happening at once that we tend to see like in the mushroom world, at least, and now seeing it here. So I thought that was pretty promising. So he wasn't able to make it today, but he does know about us, and he's doing great work, and he's really connected in that whole sphere. Highly recommend for those of you who work with your hands to get that podcast into your ears. Just one book, The Carbon Farming Solution, I found really helpful, by Eric Tonesmeyer. And then there's Chelsea Green Publishing that, if you're interested, especially in a lot of like, farming techniques, gardening, all that kind of stuff. There's like hundreds of books in that collection that are great. I will shill the blog I was telling you about that's recently going down the bison rabbit hole. That is regenseed.io. There's not many people reading it. It's fine. It's a labor of love. But yeah, I'd love to hear any feedback. And John Fullerton, he's somebody that talks about regenerative economy. Charles Eisenstein also, Jack Spirko, kind of a controversial fella, but I think he's really brilliant in a lot of ways in connecting cryptocurrency, and he's a very knowledgeable regenerative farmer himself. So I am going to go off of screen share and open it up. I wrote some ideas down here just to get the conversation rolling, if we even need that kind of a thing. And just take a peek at those if it brings anything up for y'all. And I'm gonna shut up a little bit. How do I go off? There we go, stop share. Yeah, you're all still there. I wasn't talking to myself. From Bruno, yeah, Andrew Millicent. He's one of the fathers of permaculture, right? Yeah, he has some great videos on YouTube. I've been checking out recently.
Yeah, he's definitely probably the first people that really introduced me to that concept of, like everything working together on a farm and, bettering the climate at the same time. So yeah, definitely something to check out.
Cool. Yeah, if you have any ideas there, just drop them into chat. Yeah, another person like that. I don't know how to say his name. Walter Jane. I think it's Jehne. He has a really unique perspective on climate, relating to just the power of, instead of just focusing on carbon, focusing on hydrology and the water cycle, and just the amazing carbon benefits, climate benefits you can get, from things like clouds and transpiration, and all of these things. Like, even as carbon ticks up, we can still do a lot with water. And there's amazing, like, broad scale water projects going on in India that are really promising, and China.
Hey everyone, this is my first time here. I'm Kareem. I don't know so if I'm stepping on toes, my apologies. I just wanted to, I have to tell you, I'm really excited to be in this group and to see these, 9, people, 10 in total, including me, around this issue. Super excited. And I just wanted to kind of jump in because the silence was killing me. And I know that we only have a certain amount of window of time. Really was blown away by Raz and by Scott, and looking forward to learning more about what everybody's doing. And a little Tyler, go Birds, you know what I mean? Like, I'm originally from my older son was born in a Pennsylvania hospital. I was born in Allentown. My wife is from the far Northeast. Like, you know what I mean?
Amazing.
So
I was born in the Northeast, and I was born in the same hospital as your son.
Right on.
World.
So
where are you at now?
So I'm calling in from Seattle.
Oh, cool. All right. You made it away from Philly.
That's exactly right. And, the Schuylkill and all of that, all of that. And so, what do you get? What does the group think about maybe going through and saying, like, what folks are working on? I'd love to know. For me, selfishly, I'd love to learn what people are working on. And I'll, at the end or whatever, I'll tell a little bit about what I'm working on. I'd love to be able to connect with people offline as well and just really sort of drive it. It is my sincere belief that Cardano and regenerative agriculture is the very tip of the spear of saving the day with respect to this nonsense that we have in terms of carbon dioxide, about methane, about nitrous oxide in our environment, about ways that people can save the planet and make money at the same time. Like, I really believe that the tip of the tip of the tip of the tip, right? The cutting edge is right here in this group. Nothing, the oceans can sequester, an amazing amount of carbon. Right after that is our soils. And so yeah, I just didn't want to like lose the opportunity to learn what everybody else is doing and to help in any way that I can. I've got 2 sons, 6 and 11, and based on current trajectory, I can't leave them this world. Like, we can't have carbon dioxide at 415. We can't 500. Like, we're already at levels where alligators were used to walk on, the British Isles, right? So we gotta move in a big way fast. That's it for me. And Kareem.
Yeah, thank you, Kareem. I mean, anybody want to start it off?
I'm happy to start off. Yeah, thanks, Kareem, and thanks, Tyler, and g'day to everybody. And Yoram has helped me come into this space because he's much more aware of blockchain and all the technology than I am. But I've spent a lot of time in the field, both in forests and in agricultural settings. I'm off on Saturday to Ghana. In fact, there's a project there that I'm looking to get opened up with. There's a food company based in Singapore, and there's a crop that's grown in West Africa, but also all the way down into South Africa as well. But it's very major in West Africa. It's called Bambara Groundnut, and it's a fantastic crop in that it's a legume. So it can grow in very degraded soil. It can grow in really dry, harsh environments, and it regenerates the soil because it's a legume. And it's a fantastic. The farmers there grow it as an insurance crop, so that if everything else fails, they can eat the Bambara. And it's full of protein. It's full of fiber. It's hugely healthy, but it's one of these ancient crops that no one's really done much with. And so they are making plant-based milk out of it. And they want to make a project with the farmers there in Ghana that grow it, where it's supplying them to help the farmers implement regenerative agriculture. And so I'm going to have a look, just to really meet the farmers, have a chat to them, see what they're up to, and really start to build that relationship, that connection that I talked about in my presentation. Let's build, we can't go in and start, surveying them and doing all this sort of stuff. We've got to understand their life and things like that. And so I guess the question I've got for everyone, given I know a bit about blockchain and stuff, But how would we bring the Cardano blockchain into a project like that? That's what, like we can trace the groundnuts, as they buy them. They could trace them back to, they could use the blockchain, I imagine, to trace the groundnuts back to farms, or at least back to villages. That's the sort of thing I can imagine. But, then actually supporting the farmers to implement regenerative agricultural practices. How can we use the blockchain for that? That's the sort of questions that I have for the group.
There's a good project called Ag Unity, which is actually out of Australia, that you might want to look up. It's similar. It's not using Cardano, but it's something that could be emulated. And they're doing things around the world. They've got a few different projects with cacao growers, I think in Africa, and a couple other crops, but they've sort of figured out a way to, it's not so much regenerative as it is more just ensuring that it's very sustainable in the way that they're farming, and then it's traceable from farm to table. But it's something that might give you some ideas.
Ag Unity, thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Yeah, there's a private blockchain. Now it's outside of the kind of the general blockchain space, but there's a private work, IBM Food Trust. The basic concept, I'm not recommending it. What I'm saying to directly answer your question is that I think the use case right there is an NFT associated, right? So you have a farmer, they can produce a certain quantity, or a certain sort of, like, let's say bag X of this groundnut, right? And then put a NFT on it, and then based on that knowledge, essentially like a VIN number, you can track it through the entire chain, and assure that farmer is getting an appropriate percentage of the end consumer's dollar, right? Does that make sense? But I think in this food traceability space, my opinion is around Cardano, is around NFTs and being able to track that throughout the entire value chain. A little sort of piece is around, you can, every farmer who would then assign an NFT, or maybe your organization would, they would need to be executing on a regenerative, using regenerative farming techniques. And then also you'd be able to deliver to the end customer a story or a narrative of, this farmer, John, making it up, does these fantastic things, feel good about the things that you're buying, da 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 da. Okay,
interesting. Yep.
I do believe, based on that idea, that Cardano has been involved. I remember a couple of years ago, actually, that I think it might be Emergo that was supporting this. In Indonesia, they're coffee producers they're doing this, and from the whole chain of custody, as you were saying, from people growing it to the person buying the coffee, in the store, and being able to sort of verify the beans, and the drink that they're buying, and have its story. So I think that's already happening in the Cardano ecosystem. I think also in Ethiopia. I'm not sure how it's all working.
Yeah, I think it's with the Atala Track and Trace, if I'm not. I think that's the name of it. So it's another Atala, right. So built by Emergo as well. I think they also there's a lot of ventures like that. So it's not exactly open source at the moment, I think. So you need to go through Emergo to do it. But from my understanding, it's something that you can go through, apply for funding, or apply for to use the technology, essentially. But that's an angle.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that digital identity is something that should be attached to this in that sense, or
also to provide potentially like funding for the people, so for allow them to scale. So maybe they have a business and they need funding, so they would need a credit score associated to their person to allow for that to happen. So that would be a good empowerment of the people, exactly. being able to do that. Yeah.
If I could just chime in here, guys, just hearing what you guys have all shared. There's another, I'd say, application of this technology when we talk about DAOs. Don't know if you're all familiar with what a DAO is, a decentralized autonomous organization. So I'm also part of the WADA team. I help out with their UN SDG education side of things. And Scott, I don't know if you've had a chat with anyone from WADA, but I believe with what you're seeking to do with the project in Ghana, that could be immensely impactful if we could connect further on that.
Yeah, let's do that, Rez. That'd be great.
Awesome. Also, in the last fund, I met a classmate on the Emergo blockchain course, who's based in Taiwan, I believe, but he had a background in agriculture in France, and he proposed something called Lily DAO. I don't know if any of you had come across that proposal. So that idea, what's so powerful about this technology is getting rid of the middlemen of value, or was it of necessity? I always get the two mixed up. But yeah, so we should be able to, for example, if we're buying food, connect directly with the producer, right, the farmer. A lot of us probably rely on our local supermarkets to get our food, and maybe some of us don't have the luxury of living near a farm or a farmer who produces what we'd like to eat. I know I'd love to live near you, Tyler. That would be life changing. But yeah, if we have now got this technology available to us, imagine you turn on your phone, and a bit like how you would use Uber Eats or Deliveroo, but instead you're connected directly to producer, and via this app, it's all verifiable that this produce has come from this producer. And when we think about inclusive economies, how do we create jobs that are having a positive ripple effect, right? You look around in Paris, which is where I live right now. Countless people are riding cycles, delivering people's food. That's something that's risen, especially during the pandemic. Amazon Prime, loads of delivery people out there. How do we get these people earning a fair living wage? How do you incorporate that into an economy where, what you pay for that particular product is equitably distributed to producer, to the person bringing it to you, perhaps, or if you're direct, going to the producer. So I think these ideas and concepts are really coming to life in this space, and it's really inspiring just sitting here with all of you and hearing the passion and the energy, because this is what we need, right? We can quite easily have just not decided to jump in on this call. We have a million other things we could be doing with our life, but with what Scott was saying, I think that's what also breeds this cynicism and this sense of what am I going to do, and someone else will solve the problem or not. And I became a father last year, and I totally empathize with what you're saying, Kareem. I look at my son, who's like going to be 2 soon, and I think to myself, with what time we have remaining, I guess we need to be doing something that's hopefully going to leave the world in a better shape than what it is right now. So I just want to put out there that I'm really grateful to be here with you all, and I think we're in the right place to connect. And sometimes it's just really difficult as well to keep up with all the ideas and all the things people are bringing to the table. But like I said before, if you join some of these channels, it's a good place to start to kind of get a sense of what's happening. And not everyone perhaps is too comfortable maybe being on like Telegram or Discord, but that's kind of the situation right now with this community. I'd say if you want to reach and be in tune with the conversations, you do have to have access to Telegram and Discord to get perhaps more insight. So that's one tip there. And I might have to leave a bit early, but I just had one idea: is maybe we could leave our contact details in the chat, and at least just from this breakout room, we've got already a group that can be formed, and who knows, right, where the ripple effects can go from here.
Right on. Thank you, Raz.
You Raz, love that.
One challenge that I've run into with what you were saying about localized economy and smallhold farmers and whatnot, and making sure that they get paid for their work, is crossing international borders. So in a place like Southeast Asia, for example, you have a lot of different production of different agricultural commodities in the different countries. I'm personally work in the insect industry more than anything else. And so Thailand, for example, is a big producer of crickets, but Malaysia is a big producer of black soldier fly. And so the problem is shipping that across international borders. So even with having, right across the border, it's a kilometer away, you can't get those products without going through the whole customs thing and all of that. So then expanding that to a global scale with farm to table, and this is something that I don't know if it's even feasible, but it's my pipe dream, is that some sort of blockchain transportation and logistics solution, like maybe Cardano or what IBM is doing with Hyperledger, would somehow circumvent a lot of these national borders and rules and regulations that are out there that are blocking, because that's really what is blocking the farm to table truly being farm to table. Because in order to get a lot of those permissions from government regulations, which are different in all different countries, you have to spend a lot of money and a lot of time and have legal counsel and all that stuff. So if there is some way over time, as things evolve to be more localized, regionalized, and less about national borders, which are arbitrary in the first place, to be able to have some sort of blockchain system that then does exactly that benefits smallholder farmers. Because what I'm seeing in my industry is major corporations are building temperature controlled factories in Europe and in cold places where the insects actually grow best in places like Malaysia and Cambodia and Thailand, without having such expensive overhead, and where it benefits the local economy. So that's sort of my passion, is how can this be used to actually benefit the local farmers instead of just being used by Walmart and IBM to then work with large corporations to bring the same food to the same consumers, but it doesn't benefit any humans in the process, other than maybe the transparency on the environmental side.
Yeah, I think that's a really important area to be sharing. Thank you, Josh. And you mentioned about IBM and Walmart, and what we're seeing now as well is the rise of private blockchains, and there's actually so many options out there, enterprise grade blockchains. And I think this whole sense of open source, this idea that if you're supporting a project that's open source and that's truly designed to be inclusive and distribute the share of any profits equitably, I think that's something to be highlighting along the way, because usually it's trust as well. If you're a smallholder, or if you're based somewhere where you're not really aware of how this technology works, but then there's a reputable brand company in your area who comes along and says, we have solutions for you, then generally that's how things start, and then the ball rolls from there. So I think if everyone here, for example, is going back to their respective corners of the world and sharing what's going on in the Cardano space, and then it's all transparent for anyone to critique and see, is it something that's actually superior to what's out there. But that in itself is a learning curve, and I think education is also an issue. Some of us here obviously know more than others about blockchain, and we come from diverse backgrounds. So this nexus of ideas is also what's amazing about being here, because we're going to really bounce off each other with all of our disciplines, and I would say forge a whole new type of systems thinking, which takes on board this innovative technology.
Yeah, really well said. Kareem, you started us off on talking. Why don't you tell us about what you're working on?
Sure. I want to do, so I noticed the time, which means we have about 10 minutes, and we've got a lot of stuff. And this feels like, we've all sat on a lot of Zoom calls, and this one feels a lot of that there's pregnant with a bunch of ideas and energy, So I'll tell a little bit about me, and then I'll propose something to the group, whether or not there already is, or whether or not we want to do a specific Discord server around regenerative agriculture and Cardano. I don't know, but there's a lot of conversation here. So my background is supply chains, and I have a small fresh produce distributor that focuses on regenerative agricultural farms, right? And so I work every day trying to sell fruits and vegetables into supermarkets. We are changing a little bit what we're doing, and we're doing We're partnered with Rodale Institute, not too far from you, Tyler Case, right? And we're doing technical compost, donating technical compost to regenerative farmers. Anybody ever wants to talk about it, we can talk about biochar, we can talk about terra preta that you were talking about dark earths around soil biome, we can talk about vermicomposting, right? We can talk about a lot of stuff, really. And so we're looking to marry Cardano, NFT, right? Smart contract space and compost donations around that. And, that's our opinion, bottom line is that the best way to sequester carbon is, carbon enhanced technical compost. So sort of biochar enriched, manure supported, nutrient balanced compost. That's what we're working on. So that's it for me. And just a little plug, I'd love to continue to talk, and I'd love a dedicated space for the 9 of us to really sort of flesh all this stuff out and share energy and resources.
Do you guys use Telegram? Like Telegram, I'm always on that. I don't know if you guys are over there. That could be a good space for us to have a little group.
And
I'm good.
if I'm not mistaken, Tyler, there's a channel, right, on permaculture and regenerative agriculture for the Cardano for Climate group. Is that right?
Is it
on Discord?
On Discord.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with it. I'm more on Telegram, but I see the potential. For it. I mean, I don't know where we'd be better off, but yeah, I don't know. What should we put it to a vote? Discord versus Telegram?
I'm open to both. So
yeah, we could have one of each.
Cool. Well, I mean,
I think
yeah.
The Discord channel, I'm sure, could have a space for, specifically underneath, because, Cardano for Climate has different, I would say, layers to it, or different groups that are forming because it's expanding and getting bigger and bigger. So Discord's probably a good place to organize that, like a specific one, just like these breakout rooms, you could have specific places where people are meeting. But of course, Telegram, the Cardano for Climate Telegram channel is very active. Whether one wants to create a separate one, a spinoff from that, I don't know. But it'd be really good to keep the communications going. Yeah. I wanted to, I don't know, just throw out something, along the lines of, we were talking about what people are doing. I've just gotten involved. Last Wednesday, I was at a farm I'm in North Carolina, in the US. Although I've been living in Sweden for the last 18 years, I'm kind of moving back home. And anyway, it was called Wildflower Lane Farm, and it's an organic farm that's decided to throw in the towel for trying to sell their organic produce to Whole Foods and other grocery stores. And they've bonded with a group in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, started by a woman who just ended up giving some food to needy children. Cookies in the case, the origin story, so to speak, but she created this whole thing where he's donating 100% of his produce to Table, it's literally called. And I'm just in the beginning because I was I was farming out my services as a filmmaker to my sister, who's writing a website for them. Everything's volunteer based. And he's producing, I think he said last time, he started with a $4,500 input from Table, which is sort of like a charitable donation to him to supply the farm that he's now generating. I think he said $45,000 worth of produce for needy children. And believe it or not, in a so-called first world developed country like the United States, 30% of the children in this area of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, have food lack or needs. Their needs are not being met. So this, you could say, charitable giving on this farmer's part has become a passion for him, and they've cut all the costs out of it, except for the input costs. A lot of free labor through volunteers. There are some charitable contributions that are made to help one particular former student get paid to help out on the farm and stuff like that. But anyway, without going into his story too much, it's been an interesting project that I'm starting to cut a little video for, to try to spread the word about his regenerative farming techniques, organic farming techniques, use of electric power, of course, a battery powered tiller for low till. He only tills 2 inches of the soil, low to no till farming, et cetera, et cetera. And the basic model is, he says, I can get fresh produce within 3 or 4 hours to people who are eating it. which is incredible. And that's from his farm, which is about 20 minutes, 15 minutes outside of this jurisdiction where the children who are being fed need it. And this year, he said he's moved from an $8,500 contribution to in producing $85,000 worth. So he's got this sort of 1-to-10 ratio of inputs versus the outputs. They're going back into that community, which is pretty astonishing, I think. And he wants to, spread the word to other farms and people. That's one of the things the website's going to try to do. So it's just wanted to throw that out. And back to Scott, I don't know, we were in a little breakout room. I joined at 9 o'clock my time, which was 2 hours early because of the time change failures. But Yoram got on and a bunch of other people ended up coming early too. And we ended up talking for a while. And then we had to start this breakout room for TiVo's mini proposal workshop with, I guess, the professor from Africa who couldn't make the later time change. So we had to get on with him and do this Miro board workshop. And we worked out a kind of site-specific, you could say, example for his own developing proposal in a specific jurisdiction, which he's working with in Africa. And so I don't know what it's worth to your, I didn't get enough information about what you're going to be doing going to West Africa, but I think it is a fantastic opportunity to weave in WADA potentially and Cardano on the ground, you could say, in parentheses, saying who's providing Wi-Fi access to enable digital, use of, let's say, digital identity to allow the farmers to do this, that, and the other with what we were talking about earlier with the supply chain potential for blockchain to keep track of things and stuff like that. But more than that, developing people who are there to be able to, who are stakeholders, right, in the local jurisdictions, who know the power structures, who know the things that inhibit or could promote, you could say, the development of these types of blockchain solutions, and then getting them into Catalyst to submit proposals and subsequent funds, if not already. I guess the deadline's tomorrow, I think, so it's a bit late for Fund 7. But just to be able to start incubating ideas would be the beginning and saying, okay, how can we introduce Cardano there where you're going to go, and plug them into Catalyst and plug them into the development of proposal workshops and stuff like that. Would be great.
Just to add on to what you said, Mike, it's not too late. We've got until Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
For the draft proposal window to close.
Right.
But you quite literally just have to submit a blank proposal, and
you can get a placeholder.
That's right. Yeah. So
that's right.
So it's perhaps a good idea to do that across categories that you think are relevant, and then you have time.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Race. That's really interesting. Yeah, I'd like to talk to you more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Got your email.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk about it on Discord so we can all hear.
Yeah.
Well,
hey, Tyler, I want to
consensus. Do we have consensus that we'll continue this conversation in whatever form in the permaculture subgroup of our Discord channel? Is everybody agreeing?
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm quiet now.
This has been absolutely fantastic. I'm just honored to be alongside all of you and hearing about what you're doing. Don't be shy. Show your projects, show your proposals. Let's support each other. Let's try to get into each other's mind frames here and try to move this whole thing forward. But this has been really awesome. It's 1 o'clock. I'm not sure. Is that the time that we're supposed to? I mean, I guess this is the end of the conference. Are we popping back into the main group, or?
Yeah, I don't know if did anyone see a broadcast message, or if we're supposed to jump out of this room to join the main room.
Haven't seen one yet.
No,
I should know that. I'm sorry.
Looks like I'm looking at the breakout rooms. There are 8 people still in financing environmental impact, 7 in collaborating with C4C. TiVo's having someone in creating proposals and climate challenge proposal. There's Melanie and Sean, Mike, and Siam and Hussein. So people are still in rooms.
Okay. Yeah. Apologies, gentlemen. I'm gonna have to jump off now, but it won't be the last time. Hopefully, we all meet, and I look forward to the next time. Okay.
Thanks, Raz.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
I'm going to jump off too, because my dog, if I don't take him for his evening walk, it's going to get bad. You feel better.
Yeah, and I've been on for 4 hours, I think, with no breakfast or lunch yet. So
Yeah.
I should probably eat
Really
So you're
great
doing your
to
part
talk
by
to you.
fasting, right?
You're fasting,
Yeah, but
exactly.
I've been eating too much. I need to, yeah, exactly. I need to cut down on my intake. But yeah, yeah, would love to hear more. Also, I'm going to throw this out because of the mushroom thing. I'm growing mushrooms as well and taking them every day, and developing a thing with medicinal mushroom kombucha, actually.
Ooh,
That's another project. So it's kind of cool. But
very
so the mycorrhizal remediation, like in gardening, and that's something I was talking to this farmer about, and he is a very experienced, long-term organic farmer, didn't know really anything about mushrooms and mycelium and what the benefits are for the soil. So I have some room to grow with him, you could say, I hope. But love to hear more about your mushroom growing, Tyler.
Yeah. Well, he's been growing mushrooms or fungi without even knowing it. If he's,
Yeah. Oh, I know.
doing minimal tilling, that's a big part of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, happy to talk about mushrooms. I'm not going to say that we're the most regenerative farm, but we're working our way there, and we are sort of the beginning of the life cycle for soil. It's pretty amazing. Somebody mentioned vermicompost. Just when we take our spent substrate, which is basically, it's mostly hardwood sawdust and soy hulls, actually, and then mycelium. So you feed that to worms and you throw vegetables in there. They don't touch the vegetables. The mushrooms and the bedding, essentially the substrate just breaks down into amazing dark soil that I've been using to compost perennials, and they just go crazy.
Yep.
So it's we're soil builders in a way, but we're still reliant on plastic to a large degree. So we can definitely be doing things better.
Bags. Do you know Mushroom Mountain in South Carolina, Trad Cotter's business? Yeah, Trad's someone who I went and met a year and a half ago or so, and was doing a tour, just these little tours, but he was talking about the compost. It's like, rocket fuel for gardening that he comes up with. And he had introduced earthworms to it as a culture that would then completely, or an entity, I guess I should say, that would, fire up the whole thing. So
it's amazing.
He was saying,
I've been putting it in on my yard, stuff. And the red wriggler worms show up, and the earthworms show up, and they just come. The earthworms come from deep, and they come up, and they just make all these channels for air and water to penetrate. And then you start seeing tree roots. I'm like, what's all this roots on top? I thought there was like weed seeds that had germinated, but it was all tree roots that you could see like actual mycorrhizal mycelium like clinging to those roots. Connections. Pretty amazing. I mean, we could talk about mycorrhizae all day long. The one important piece I like to tell people is that that mycorrhizal relationship, myco, fungus, rhizo, root, plant, that relationship is as old as plants being on land. So like the connection is paramount. That was the first thing. There's no separation there. And I like to think that if the idea of transpermia, I guess we're going deep here, but if I don't think it was necessarily one spore that landed on the earth. If that was how it all started, I think there was a plant spore and there was a mushroom spore, and then eventually those mushrooms evolved into animals and evolved into us. But I feel like those two things that have been in union since the very beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely a growing area of research and discovery about that other kingdom, so to speak, the fungal kingdom. So well, I guess I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, wheels are starting to turn about. I mean, Trad was coming up with not a mycorrhizal, but a fungal brick, and he's working with Clemson University to develop. You could imagine having bricks that you could stack and get wet, and they would grow together. You would have no need for the cement connecting them, and things like that. So it's who knows if he would be interested in Cardano blockchain and all of these other things that could go together with those business ideas that he has. But maybe I should get back in touch with him.
That'd be cool. Yeah. I'm gonna let's see here. I'm going to link to one of my blog posts that was a proposal last round, and it is a mushroom breeding program kind of based on NFTs.
Oh.
So if you are talking to people in the mushroom world, this project kind of on the back burner, no rush, but we're going to need the mushroom people on board to pull this off. So maybe like down the road, Fund 9, Fund 10. There it is. Based on one of my favorite mushrooms,
cool.
Chicken of the Woods, which is
Chicken
actually,
of the Woods, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a brown rot fungus, so it breaks down cellulose and leaves behind lignin. But if you look at a tree that Chicken of the Woods has consumed, the leftover lignin is very stable, a strong fiber, and so it kind of breaks apart into these super light but still like coherent little chunks. That reminds me a lot of charcoal, and it's that is stable. That lignin is sort of like the basis for humus, for like the fundamental. After everything's broken down, that's the carbon that stays in the soil like forever, essentially. So I would love to talk to somebody about growing some Chicken of the Woods, or just finding the wood out there and kind of using it in the same applications as biochar. So was it Kareem? Are you still here?
I think he popped off.
He popped off.
Yeah.
Okay. But he's our biochar guy.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll check out
Anybody
this
else that
proposal.
hasn't
Looks great.
spoken up wanna chime in before we go?
I don't mind. Yeah.
Cool.
Why not? I'm right now, so I'm in Portugal, and yeah, I've been involved here in Cardano for Climate for a little while, so like a month or two, and just been trying to get involved in like Cardano Project Catalyst, and I recently joined the team over at Empower. So I don't know if you guys know about that. It's a very interesting project, working in Mozambique right now, area called Beira. So what the idea is there is just to provide affordable housing, but also sustainable housing, because I don't know if you guys know, but like construction is one of the biggest CO2 emitters. So it's one of the biggest areas that emit CO2. And over the next 25 years, I think it is. So in 2050, it's going to be like 50% of CO2 emissions are from construction of buildings. So something that they're trying to tackle there is funding these buildings through DeFi, but at the same time funding sustainable buildings that won't harm the climate in the long term. And yeah, I feel like it's something that everyone here could get behind, and definitely put your ideas forward. Like if you guys have like any ideas towards regenerative agriculture being implemented over there, I would love people supporting that idea, because I'm pushing for it all the time with like the higher ups in the team. But obviously the more community members we have that idea, it's going to be like much more of an impact than just me saying it's a good idea. If you guys are there saying we need regenerative agriculture, we need ponds, we need swales, things like this to support the people, I feel like that's going to have a much bigger impact than just the housing. I feel like we can have a lot much more reach with the project if we implement regenerative agriculture and permaculture. So yeah, I would love to see you guys over there.
Did you were in the room with Bruno? Let's see, is Bruno? Yeah, no, you're Bruno. Sorry,
I'm Bruno.
Was there another? Oh, Blaine. Sorry, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But he was, as an architect, right? He's involved in that, isn't he?
Yeah. So he's been involved a bit longer than me. He's the sustainability director or something about that. Yeah, something like that. But something like that, yeah, something along those lines.
Because I was thinking about that whole, again, it's an ecosystem, right? It's you need to plan water conservation or all kinds of different things into.
So there's already a couple of stuff they're doing, like, which I'm really happy about, like water treatment, grey water treatment, black water treatment. Exactly. They've got I think they're using solar panels on most of the houses. The wood is all from like sustainably sourced timber. And yeah, they're doing a lot of good stuff, but we just want to maximize that. We got to make sure we don't miss out anything, and long term these are like really viable houses for the people there.
That's great.
But if someone else, I think that we've got a couple more people here that got T.
Well, T.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just listening. It's a very interesting. I took a permaculture course about I think 9 years ago, but I didn't practice much. And this is a very interesting idea. And probably you see the pictures up there. That's in Ethiopia, and in around Lalibela area. And these areas are very dry and highlands. Obviously, they are completely worn off. Very drought-prone areas. Very little water management and everything. So this is a very interesting idea. I would like to follow up on this group and see what's come of it. That's all I should say now.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Thank you.
T. Yeah, that's something that I'm very interested in. I actually wrote a blog post about, it's called Ethiopian Highlands, addressing that issue. I don't know if you were here, but I had seen something about folks in the highlands, cow herds burning manure as a fuel source, and just thinking about, man, I think the average grade there is like 30%, and it's just like you're saying, it's such a challenge to get that soil to stay, and that's like removing that piece from the pasture is really, it seems like an opportunity that maybe we in Cardano can help folks solve up there. Such an amazing.
That was part of that solar cooker proposal, right?
Oh, cool! Yeah,
I think so. They were talking about it. If you could, provide another source of fuel like the sun and solar cookers, then you could save the manure.
That's actually not just on the highlands, but all over the country. That's the practice. I don't know if you know also that Ethiopia had about 67% forest coverage around the end of the last century, or 1900 or something like that. But then it disappeared, almost everything, and now it's about 2 or 3% remains.
Right.
So they have been trying to reforest some of the things, but it's not very efficient, and not everyone is involved. It's some of them is just publicity stunt.
Right.
There is no really effort to include the people, and I'm always very skeptic of efforts that don't include the people that actually who would do the job in a large scale, and also who are affected by the drought and by the climate change, everything. So I've seen that many times, that we hear, we listen, and there is a lot of publicity and nothing happens, nothing changes.
Right.
But there are efforts in Ethiopia at the local level, for example, like building swales, water management, and there are some places that have come back. I mean, really did a very good job of bringing back the rivers that have been disappeared for many years. So there is a lot of things to do. A lot of things to do, really. There are people who want to learn, who want to do. There is probably a problem with a bit of financing. For example, they have to live off the land, and probably they are afraid of experimenting. This DeFi and other, for example, this small scale, this insurance, they can encourage them, for example, to, okay, I can experiment for the next year or something like that. So there are a lot of things to do. But there wasn't before, when there is this centralized system, things don't go that far. They just go to certain areas and they don't scale really. We hear them and they just disappear after some years. But with decentralized systems like Cardano, I hope things would be different, that it can't really scale to almost everyone. not just in Ethiopia, all over Africa. And one thing I can say is that the problem in Ethiopia is so severe, and the affected people are so over 115 million people is not small. For anyone really want to experiment with their ideas, it's available. Everything is available. So yeah, that's what I want to say. It's always really surprised me that people work very hard to get to people who need the help, or who need really not the help, but assistance really to pick up their lives.
To organize, yeah.
Yes. Most of the work is done like getting there, getting to the people. And then the energy is lost, 90% of the energy is lost. Until they come there. And when they come there, then they come back after taking few quotes, and then it becomes just disappears. If we didn't do that with all the efforts of the last 50, 60 years, things would have been different. But what we see today is worse than what we had 30, 40, 50 years ago. So I hope this time it will be different. I think that's my take in this one.
Well, I would say that no matter what, Catalyst could serve a purpose, I suppose, in helping to fund some kind of project. So get a proposal in if you haven't already, and get it being worked on.
Yeah, I have a proposal for what's called for a community organization called IDDER in a DAO.
Please link that in the chat if you can.
Yes.
Let me see.
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of the Cardano community is focused on Ethiopia, and I think it's a great thing. And as you're saying, it's just, I mean, from what I know from the outside, it just seems like such a challenging situation, you know, on so many different levels. That any attention that we can bring, you know, to these problems and ways to push Cardano forward and help the people of Ethiopia move forward, I think is going to pay dividends for everybody. So thank you for speaking up. Yeah,
absolutely. I think fortunately Cardano has picked Ethiopia as a kind of flagship project, and if it fails, it is a failure of probably Cardano itself. So
how do we not fail? How does Cardano not fail in pushing power to the Ethiopian people?
Yes, we see. That's my proposal. I have actually 4 proposals that are connected together, and this is a kind of organization. It's a very old organization in Ethiopia, kind of modern. It has laws, written laws, and it has ledger, and it's not supported by anyone. It's self-sufficient completely. It's kind of a risk-sharing organization, but it can't scale. When these organizations get bigger, as all centralized organizations, there must be centralization to make them work. When that happens, they kind of get corrupt, and people leave, and they split and form new ones, and that way they remained decentralized completely for over 100 years, these organizations. And there is 90% prevalence in Ethiopia. 90% of households are members of 1 or 2 of these IDDERs. And these organizations are perfect place to implement a blockchain-based solution. We can build a DAO out of these organizations that's global, in fact. Right now, they can't be more than, say, 300 people. If they become bigger than 300 people, then that centralization problem comes in. And if they are less than a certain number of people, then they become really useless and they collapse. And
It's almost like the stake pools, no? It kind of reminds me in terms of like when the number gets too big, instead of ADA, it's the people. Like when too many people are involved, then it's better to split into two smaller organizations or three or whatever.
Yes. But the problem with Elders is that each Elder is self-sufficient and they have no communication between them.
Exactly.
And what people do is people become members of 2-3 Elders. But as an organization, each Elder becomes a kind of or a DAO for a centralized organization, because even the leadership, it's a voluntary leadership, and they pay the same amount and they draw the same amount. It's a trust-based organization. And this has really, for me, they are the precursors of DAO that needed blockchain to really shine. And and I think Cardano can make a difference, and not only by organizing them, but once these networks get connected, these organizations get connected into one big DAO, then you can build DeFi over them. You can, education you can build over them. You can have health insurance over them. For example, you can have these small DAOs by themselves. People can choose for themselves where to participate. Even build, in my view, you can build them up to the UBI, for example, from bottom up instead of from top to down. So I hope you will look at them, the proposal, and see what's possible. Especially those of you who want to really contribute, you can see what you can do with them. Again, this sustainability discussion also can be one of them, because almost all the farmers in Ethiopia cannot survive without this organization. The government is useless. The government serves only the politicians. It is these organizations that take care of people. People take care of each other through these organizations. And the government don't want them. Even these so-called help organizations, they don't deal with them because they don't extract any value from them. These organizations serve only their members. And most of the politicians are serving their own interest, and the these banks and insurance are serving their profit, and all centralized organizations serving their power base. And they are not getting anything out of these organizations, because these organizations are completely decentralized and they don't serve anybody. And because of that, they don't get anything from these supposed to be help organizations. It always really baffles me when I see, including there is paper for the last 60 years. If you see the video that I submitted for this proposal, that wondering why don't all these organizations channel their resources through Elders? They ask that. And for me, the only answer is because they don't get to exploit them. If they don't exploit them, if they don't extract value from them, then they don't want them at all, or they don't really, why should I channel their resources to them? But now I think, but when I say that, I don't mean that everybody is bad, the entire world is bad, but it's the centralized system that are bad. Because I live in Scandinavia for the last 25 years. I know, I have lived with people, and people in Norway. I lived in Norway for 19 years, and in Sweden now over 10 years. And people really give a lot of money to help Africa. Individual people do. But when the money funnels into this system, into this centralized system, it just do rather bad than anything good. When it comes to Africa, it really harms more than it helps. So these kind of organizations connect the people, for example, those who want really to help, those who don't want to see hungry children, they connect directly with them. There is nothing that says that, no, for example, people in Scandinavia cannot join others. Why not? They can join others. They can get the same service as the ones in, for example, the poor person in Ethiopia. Probably the money would not be as really good or as big as that they would get in. But others are not only for financial, but also they are for emotional satisfaction, or mainly they are for when tragedy occurs, when somebody dies, especially family members die. That's when they others come in. Really the most basic service is that. But if they have the money, they can add other services. But others are mainly for they are set up to assist with funeral services, and with also families who are in crisis. For example, you have to visit, there is obligation to visit families and to be on funeral, and to be with, you divide these chores and help the family to be with their emotional crisis. So there is no reason why that, I mean, recognition of somebody's somebody's loved one is everybody's need. It doesn't matter whether it's Africa or in Norway. Everybody would like to really record that if somebody dies, if my mother or father dies, I would love somebody to recognize it, that I lost someone loved one. So that emotional, that kind of human aspect of these organizations are perfectly really meets with what we are trying to do. That
community
puts that in level field, that not up and down, but a caring society, and creating caring society.
Where are you living in Sweden?
I live in Sweden near Karlstad, a small town.
Karlstad, yeah. Okay. Yes. I was living in Stockholm, but working in Norrköping at the university.
Oh, okay.
Linköping Universitet.
I work in Norway. I'm actually a seaman. I work on a ship.
Oh, great.
I'm a marine engineer. So.
Oh, great. Wow.
I burned a lot of fossil fuels, so I'm trying to compensate that with
ships are pretty bad, yeah. but they're I was gonna say, well, now I didn't realize you were so deep into it here with being since Fund 1 and stuff like that.
Yes.
And a CA, I guess VCA as well. It's great. Well, this is very interesting. I mean, if there are already pre-existing, you could say, structures or community structures that could be, as you say, now added to with new technology to decentralization, and the fact that, I mean, I keep going back to digital identity and Atala Prism, and the announcement made in May, you know, with the Ethiopian government partnership and all of that, that I guess somehow this should be integrated with, I would assume, but the idea that more and more people, if they can get onto the Atala Prism digital identity platform, and then you could form, I would say, decentralized autonomous ideas there, or, I mean, I'm just brainstorming.
Yes, but the possibility is there, but I think people don't realize that how much resistance is there to apply these things in Ethiopia, in the government.
Sure.
That's why it's been there for the longest, but the 5 million identities are really it's one person who did that, one minister. It's not the government policy. When it's being told, for example, like it's a big deal, for me, it's not. And there is a lot of resistance. The IOG has to work up with the government. There's no doubt about it. But I think to implement these things, we have to work from down up. from this organization. These organizations are completely independent, so they are not, government cannot tell them what they do. And they are not only in Ethiopia, but they are all over the world. Wherever Ethiopians are, they form these edges.
The diaspora,
Yeah, in diaspora also. So what I'm thinking is, if we have the tools, ready tools to implement, then we can have the diaspora, in fact, to finance, or every diaspora have families in Ethiopia. I am member of IDR in my country. I left 30 years ago. I'm still member of IDR in my area where I come from. And I'm sure almost, let's say, half diaspora is member of. They can bring those IDRs where they come from into the system. I think, in my view, the government, there are people in the government who can help, but I don't trust most of them to help, because these things will really kill their power. That's the truth. When they understand what this is going to do, these are corrupt people. If they weren't corrupt, the country wouldn't be. I'm sure you have heard all the war that's going on. It has nothing to do with the people. It's the politicians. It's the politicians who did that. And so, in my view, these things has to be done from bottoms up. You know, there are people who can help at the top, but the best thing is that if you do it through catalyst from bottom up, then there is no one to stop it. There is no one to block it. They have blocked the implementation of Atala Prism until now. It is one person's Minister of Education who was in Innovation Ministry when they signed first 5 years ago, 4 years ago. They couldn't let him do the job there. So because he had no access to the people, he was just one individual, and they blocked him. Those who are under him and those who are beside him, they blocked him. Then he came to Ministry of Education, and he has taken almost 1 year to prepare for this, and at last he signed. And now that guy is, that minister is no more on that job, probably because of it. But they couldn't undo what he has done. So if you, I don't know if you have noticed, when Charles went to Addis Ababa, he has to sign a new memorandum of understanding. That's something people missed. Why do he need to sign one new MOU? If it were government policy, it wasn't.
Right.
But we have done a lot of job trying to educate people, to appraise people. I myself have written thousands of letters to different ministries to not to stop this thing, to make people aware of what benefits these are. So hopefully that also probably helped. But if we want to get to the people, I think we have to work from bottoms up. And editors are, for me, the perfect really organizations to do that.
That sounds like a
we all want
really different angle. No, just gonna say like a different angle than going through the education minister, going to like the people, and they already have these organizations. It's like a cooperative, what it sounds like a little bit. But yeah, sounds like a great idea for sure.
And energizing the diaspora who can,
Exactly,
even from the outside in work.
Yeah.
I like that outside to in function, bottom up, outside in.
I can tell you that most changes that happened in Ethiopia in the last 50 years initiated in diaspora, because only the diaspora have the power to, the resources to really do those things.
Yeah, it's like a remittance. Remittance is like one of the biggest, like the most money going to like Africa is from remittance. It's not from investments or from aid or anything like this. It's all remittance, people sending money to family or to build a house or whatever it is.
But not only in terms of remittance, but in terms of really thought leaders. Like In the country, people for the universities are not free. They are not the people in universities are, or the opposition organizations are not free to act as they please. But in diaspora, the diaspora people can say things, especially after internet came, and then they listen inside the country to the people in diaspora, and things get change come initiated in diaspora and implemented in the country. That's what happened in the last probably, and especially after the internet came about. The diaspora influence is very high, but it's not sustainable because diaspora is not there. They don't live there. Whatever the people listened and came out to do or to affect this change, it always gets subverted because, yeah, you can't run things from diaspora. That was one of the things that, but through this, if they empower this way the people on the ground down there, through the, as I said, through the decentralized identity, through decentralized organizations, then it's the people who will take the leadership, even so the diaspora can provide with the means, then the people can sustain the change that's coming. Change that come from the people are always sustainable, and it's always good, really. It is never bad. There are extremists that who do really bad things. It's not the people, never the people. When the people when they have the tools and when they have the power to affect change, it stays. That's what I believe. And the diaspora can provide those tools, can provide the resources. It has economic muscles. They can provide, for example, the microloans, and it doesn't have to change to send money without anything. But through this, they can send microloans directly to the people. All these things become possible, and once we have once the people are empowered with the tools to access.
Absolutely.
The wider world.
Yeah, that
Wow.
you've answered a lot of questions that I've had. Thank you, and raised some other really important things that we can follow up with. And really, I think the proposal, I'm really excited to see where it goes. And if there's a way that our new community that we've created here today can help, help people on the ground as part of these ideas, maybe do some regenerative agriculture, and we'll see where it goes. But let's
Absolutely
make sure that you hop on Discord. That's where we decided to keep this conversation going, and just stay on our radar. I got to jump off in a minute, but
me too.
Yeah, this has been really great. Any
I'm a member of that Discord channel. That's a server. I'm a member of the Discord server.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot of activity on the Telegram group as well. That's more just like a list of new messages constantly. But Discord is going to be where we meet up to collect these ideas in the permaculture section.
What is the Discord? Have you guys got the link? I don't think I have.
See if I can. I'm not sure.
See if I can find it. I'm not very good on Discord.
Yeah, I'm like trying to figure out even like a URL or something.
Wow, it's updating my software. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works. Do you need somebody to add you? I'm not sure even how I got added here, but
I think this is the channel to that. I think this is the channel.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, put it on chat.
That is good.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nice one.
Well, this has been awesome. I'm really happy to have connected with you all. I'm not hosting this, so I think you can keep talking if you want. I just got to stop recording here.
Okay. Okay, I have to go, so I have to put my son to bed. So
Yeah, I'm gonna go eat, guys. So good
Yeah,
to
Go
Alright.
eat and
breakfast.
stretch my legs. 4.5
Yeah.
hours.
Likewise, man.
All right.
so much food.
Much love, everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see you later.
likewise.
Be well.